The topic of this video is to apply the order of operations. First, in applying the order of operations, we first evaluate the grouping symbols. The grouping symbols could include parentheses, brackets, braces, a fraction bar, a square root sign, or other grouping symbols. Second, you will evaluate the exponents or powers. Third, multiply or divide from left to right. And fourth, add or subtract from left to right. Two common phrases used to help us remember the order of operations are, "Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally," or PEMDAS. Here, the P stands for parentheses or grouping symbols, E stands for exponents, M and D stand for multiply or divide from left to right, and A and S stand for add or subtract from left to right. Let's try some examples. Here the directions say, evaluate the expression. In part A, first of all, looking at the problem, we would want to evaluate the exponent first since there are no grouping symbols here. So let's start by raising 3 to the second power, which is 9. Then we'll want to multiply or divide from left to right. So first comes division. 27 divided by 9 is 3. Now we have multiplication and subtraction, so we'll do our multiplication first. 3 times 2 is 6. And finally subtract 3. In letter B, again we'll want to evaluate the exponents first. 4 squared is 4 times 4, which is 16, and then finally do our subtraction. 20 minus 16 is 4. In example C, again we'll want to evaluate the power first. So we'll take 3 squared, which is 9, then multiply, and finally add. And in letter D, again, evaluate the power first. 2 cubed means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Then we'll do our division. 32 divided by 8 is 4, and 4 plus 6 is 10. In example 2, we see some expressions that have grouping symbols. So we'll first evaluate what's in the grouping symbols. 13 minus 8 is 5, and then multiplication gives us 35. In letter B, working inside the grouping symbols, we see that we first need to evaluate the power. 3 squared is 9. Then evaluating the grouping symbol, 9 plus 1 is 10, and finally subtracting gives us 14. In letter C, we have grouping symbols within grouping symbols, so we're going to work with the innermost grouping symbols, 8 plus 13. 8 plus 13 is 21. And then inside those grouping symbols, 30 minus 21 is 9. And finally, multiplication gives us 18. Another type of example that you may be asked to do is to evaluate an expression given a value. So in example 3, we're told that x equals 4. So first we'll substitute that value in for x. So everywhere I see an x, I'm going to place a 4. Then I'm going to apply the order of operations. The fraction bar acts as a grouping symbol, so I'm first going to do what's on top. 9 times 4 is 36. And now looking at the bottom, I need to evaluate these grouping symbols first. 4 plus 2 is 6. And still working on the bottom, 3 times 6 is 18. And finally, I can divide. 36 divided by 18 is 2. In example B, first substitute the value, x equals 4, in for x. Then evaluate the power, 4 times 4 is 16. And finally subtract, gives me 13. And last, letter C, first substituting the value, and then we'll apply multiplication. And notice I'm working on the top first. 10 times 4 is 40. And then on the bottom, 2 times 4 is 8. And so combining the 40 plus 4 is 44. And on the bottom, 8 plus 3 is 11. And finally, I can divide those to get 4.